make clear that Germany has to, on the one hand, most interest in go on with the common market, but also that Germany was right to say we will be responsible in a special way on these refugee topic. The asylum applications here, you see the German share is 36%. The share of population is 16%, so we're doing a lot in the just now. We are more able than 12 months ago to manage it. We're very successful in doing it, and now we are have this challenge to organize a new setting for this asylum policy in Europe. We know a lot more nowadays about the refugees which came in. Today, my institute in Cologne published a study on the quality of human capital of the people from Syria, and it's even higher than expected. So there is a chance to get a high degree of integration in the labor market, but the historical figures show us after 5 years, only 50% are employed, normally 80%. So there is a gap between the employment integration of refugees compared to the population we have already in. But we do this, and I hope we will be able to manage also this approach of this challenge to the asylum procedure. It's quite clear that this Dublin and Schengen agreement was very favorable for Germany. The only way to come to Germany was via a plane. You come to Frankfurt, and then you was asked what's your idea why you want to come in, and otherwise back. But to come via plane, you need some money. All the other problems were then to the European foreign border. It was a very comfortable situation for the German society as a whole, but we all forget in the year 1994, when this new asylum policy was decided, to create a distribution mechanism. What should we do with the people coming in? They are accepted. In which way they should be distributed in the European Union? There was no decision on this. And as we all know from worlds that we should do very difficult decision in the way of ignorance, it's best to do it when the problem is not on the table. 24 years ago, the problem was not on the table. But nobody was thinking on this, and now we have the problem to do it in a situation where more than 1 million are just in Germany, and we have a high degree in all the other. We have need to act. This is the distribution mechanism already mentioned. We have this EU-Turkey deal, which still works. And I don't think so that Mr. Erdogan has a very simple game to saying that is a pressure against the Europeans, because he's also interested that this is not only businesses will work, and this will give a starting point for a new cooperation. Now we have some attempt to go ahead with the European asylum policy, for example, the Plan Africa and something else. But here we have a lot to do, and just know the interests are very different. To come to the third and even very important risk, the Brexit. In advance, I was asked just before the lecture what was my forecast on the Brexit. I said no. I could not imagine before that the British people will vote in the majority to leave the European Union. Yeah, it's so. It's not so good to make forecasts even for the future. So in political terms, even more. What we have to realize, I think, is that it's really a problem of the elite. Over decades, the British politicians and British media were more or less negative, skeptical, critical of the European Union. Look on the media on Sunday, the Mirror, 65 to 70% of the articles was in favor of leave. David Cameron all the time was very exposed as a critic on European integration, and now he should be a credible person to make advertisement for stay in. This was not really a convincing story. But I think what's even more important is what we saw in this more regional explanation, that it was also a vote against London. If you put Greater London away from Great Britain, then you have a tremendous negative impact on the economy. So the British economy is focused, it's based more or less on the financial center model. This is due to the so-called Big Bang from Margaret Thatcher in October 1986, when she liberalized, deregulated financial capital markets in London. At the same time, they win the battle against the trade unions outside. So the breakdown of the manufacturing sector and the rise of the financial sector was also an orientation for human capital. The high-paid human capital came into London. So this is the spot, the hot spot of the British economy. There's no comparable everywhere else in Great Britain. The expectation now are that we will see a negative impact. This was a change in the medium-term forecast for from June to July. Here was on June 23rd was the Brexit vote. You see a loss of 1.5% in GDP. But also Europe will have a small loss of economic growth. So yes, it's a bad story. But on the other hand, this story reminds us what is important in Europe. What's really important, and really important, is that we stick to the principles we defined very early in the Treaty of Rome on this continent as a continent of freedom, freedom of movement, and freedom of mobility, unlimited mobility for all member states. So yes, we have this special British story, and from my interpretation, it's not a European problem. At first, it's a British problem, which has tremendous consequence for the European Union, quite clear, but at first it's a British problem. One explanation to that. If you see, we look back to the year 2000, and we look on the GDP, per capita, this German situation here, we have this short dip from the financial crisis. This is for Great Britain, GDP per capita. But even more important, the annual change of the average wage per worker, per employee in Great Britain and in Germany. This is a story in Germany. We have a situation of stable real income, and for the worker, and then it's speeded up again. This is a story for Great Britain. So we oversee this before. So as you know, as an economist, we're sometimes more lucky to explain the past than to forecast the future. But I think this is a very important indicator to make clear what's going on. This is behind the scene, what the people really see in their region, which are totally different to the situation in London. Another point, that we have a very specific situation in current account. This is a negative current account in trade with commodities. So I'm not really fearful if I'm looking on the Brexit negotiations, because the British economy is no more able to deliver the products they need if they want to go on with deindustrialization. The same is true to the US. Same is true here. So I said to the German colleagues, don't worry about Trump. What they need, they have to ask for the German manufacturing sector. This is the service, trade and services, so it's quite clear to the financial sector and that's the overall situation. So to make a long story short, we try to understand in which way the negotiations could come to a result. And we use the game theory approach. Very easy, saying that both partners, European Union and United Kingdom, have two options. They can have a tough or an easy strategy for their negotiations. They will strong and stick to their principles, what's important for them, and they will make an appeasement. Then we have very different solutions. Suppose the first solution, both are tough. Those are very tough. So there's no consensus. That means UK has to leave the European Union, no access to the single market, no financial passport, no more the chance to get to serve as a financial center for the European Union. So this is the WTO status. That means UK is something similar like another member of the WTO for the nothing else. If the European Union started an appeasement, then we will say this is solution cherry picking the United Kingdom. They will get what they want. On the migration policy, for example, they have free access to the single market, free access to the financial institutions, no payments. Other way around, the Brits are easy, the Europeans are tough. Now we have the solution Norway. Norway is still used because Norway has a special treaty with the European Union. It's treated as a member, free access to the single market, free access also in the financial markets. There can be a free movement of people there, and they pay a lot of money, but they have nothing to say. So they're not part of the political procedure. They have the access to the market, but they have no no chance to be part of the procedure in decision procedure in the political procedure. And the last, it's what we call Norway Plus. It's similar to Norway, but with a restricted movement of people. So there's both are trying to be more on a consensus perspective. So if you have this on the table, the question is what will happen? And here we used a very simple game theory approach asking where is the national equilibrium? Where are the highest burden and the highest results, the highest chance to get a payment? And if you're looking on this, you can say if both are tough, it's neutral for the European Union, it's negative. This means negative or zero, neutral. If you look here, it's quite clear that the stable long-run equilibrium is Norway. So our best guess for the time being is that the Brexit negotiation will lead to a Norway solution and will offer the Brits the access to the single market, but they have to accept the free movement. We cannot accept that this very important principle defined once in the Treaty of Rome could be pushed away or moved away using these inputs from Britain. So the best guess, and we leave this for discussion, is that Norway will this solution. To come to the conclusion and to the end of my lecture, what is the perspective? The title here is the European Union of Nation States. If you look back on the three crises, all these opened a new window, looking in a positive way. The Eurozone had the impact that we had to learn some lessons, and we really learned some lessons. I mentioned the fiscal compact, I mentioned the European semester, I mentioned other new regulations. I know we have to accept we have to work with these new regulations. This is an improvement process before totally unknown landscape. Second, the discussion on migration policy brings us back to the very heart of European integration. That means economic integration and common welfare and peace. And the Brexit makes clear that, quite obvious, the European Union is vulnerable and that there is no history-driven automatism for further integration. I think it's very important. There's no, as some observers, especially in Germany, thought over time, there's no history-driven automatism of further integration. They have to look for a new balance on that. So the question is, which of these both groups are right? These two, further and deeper integration, here Jean-Claude Juncker, Martin Schulz, President of the European Commission, President of the European Parliament, or these nice people here, Marine Le Pen from France and Geert Wilders from the Netherlands, which are in favor of the nation state first and foremost. I think both wrong. There is no future in the past. What does that mean? The past was a Europe of military conflicts, a Europe without a feasible kind of cooperation, a Europe divided in nation states without any perspective of cooperation in multinational structures. But I think also there is no automatic way to future political integration. We have to understand European history as it is, as a long way to look for solutions which are appropriate for the time being, and this is, we should do it in a way by historical investigation, and there the landscape changed. We started 65 years ago with institution building and regulation. I said with the European Community on Coal and Steel, we created the single market, the common currency, Schengen, and Dublin. We have a popular vote for the Parliament since 1979, the Commission, the Council, the ECB. All this was very important stories. We should not forget that over time there were we had periods of standstill, periods without any perspective of further European integration. From the midst of the 1970s to the mid of the 1980s, there was really no idea on the table what should be the next step for European integration. Then Jacques Delors came out with the Delors report in 1985, and this was a game changer on the scene, of the European scene, started again, and was opened the way to get a deeper integration in several aspects, and as well the monetary integration was started. The second is that we have to learn that crisis management and event policy, as the colleagues from political science would say, is now the daily business of European politics. We have to manage crisis, and we should be aware that event policy instead of regulation and institutional creation is more important. So we have to save currency, we have to manage the refugee influx, and so on. And we should not forget, let me only this short story in the end. The first director of my institute is still alive, he's 104 years old. And he was, when he had served 10 years as director of my institute, he became a member of the High Commission of the European Community of Pluralists. And he told me several years ago when we met, he said, in this time, when I came to the High Commission of the European Community, we had a big crisis in Europe. It was a so-called Belgian coal crisis. What happened? What had happened? What was the background of this? And after the mid of the 1950s, European coal mining suffered by the import from low-cost coal from everywhere in the world, especially from the United States. So the market price for coal came down, and most affected were these coal mining locations which has the less productivity, which were less productive. It was Belgium. But in Belgium, coal mining counted for 20% of GDP and 20% of the employment. 20%. So the Belgian government came to the High Commission and said, sorry, we have to leave the community because we are not able to manage this situation in line with the rules of European Community. We should and we have to subsidize the adjustment process in coal mining. We have to pay subsidies to the people which came out of this employment. We need a restructuring program, and we are not able to afford the price level of the common market. What was the answer of the High Commission? They said, it was 7 years after the beginning of European integration. We should not allow that in the first crisis came up, with maybe the reason that one member has to leave the community. So we should be flexible. What they did, they allowed the Belgian government to subsidize these adjustment process. They allowed the Belgian government to move out of the price system of the common market for a period of time. And they offered a financial aid, $1 billion US to Belgium to organize these adjustment processes. And if you look on the structural aspects of this crisis management, it's more or less the same than the crisis management in Greece, in spring 2010. We offered for a defined period of time that they able to move out of some regulations of the treaty, to adjust, and we give conditional aid to organize this adjustment process. So it's totally the same. It was totally the same. So sometimes I think it's very inspiring to see the historical development, which was not too bad, and we were able to come back to what is the European integration just now. So it could be, this could, in the first one, in 1959, this would be the first end of the European integration story, which started in 1951. What we need is a pragmatic vision. We have to handle the creativity of history, I should say, and I think we have learned a lot. The Bratislava roadmap is in this way. We will have a flexible solution for migration, it is decided. We will focus on internal security, most important to the people. We will start a single market 2.0, that's a so-called digital single market. This is quite clear that it's only organized on the European level. If we want to define standard for the global economy in the digital world, then we use this European power. It's very important for every person. And at least, but not at the last point, it's the European Defence Union. Yesterday, the European Ministers of Foreign Affairs and Defence decided to launch a joint program on cooperation in this field of activity. I think it's very important because here we have not only a political reasoning, there's also an economic reasoning behind. This is a European-wide public good, what we create if we start the European Defence Union. This is the story we should go ahead. And the last slide is this one. It's from 1951. Whatever the weather, we must move together. This was created in the Marshall Plan program. It's a very interesting setting. Look here, all these European member states at this time, European states, there was not yet really a European integration, but behind, the orientation came from the US. This is still open. But maybe without this, we should start in this way. And it's interesting to come back to history to see that the European integration is the story of success despite all these crises. So as an historian, I would say we should go ahead. Many thanks for your attention.